Hello and welcome to this first feedback episode of the UFOcast. We had various bits of feedback coming from various sources and we decided we wanted to talk about them. And so this episode, because we have a fortnightly schedule, we thought we'd slot one in between. So we're recording this the day that episode 3 of our podcast goes out, so we've only had feedback from you guys about the first 2 episodes. So if you've sent us in some feedback, we will possibly talk about it now. And I'm going to go first to Twitter, where we have an American listener who has messaged us a couple of times. So I'm just going to... I don't think Michael has seen any of these, so I'm just going to read out what
I must admit, no, so I will react.
So this is from Chris in the US. Greetings, US listener here. Looking forward to your second episode. I had to Google what a fortnight is, and I forget that a fortnight is not a term that Americans use. It just means every 2 weeks. Every fortnight.
I only know this because there's an Abbott and Costello sketch where one of the characters turns to the other ones, I will see you in 2 weeks, or perhaps a fortnight, and they walk off. And the audience laughed, and I didn't get the gag. And I had to ask my dad, and as a child, this was explained to me that Americans don't have the word fortnight, which is odd. So, yeah, I agree and understand completely what you're talking about.
And so, anyway, he says, I'm working my way through watching the beautiful Blu-ray set. First time I've seen the show in more than 20 years. Will you be mentioning how, besides George Sewell, some of the cast inexplicably changes about halfway through the series? I think it had to do with a lengthy pause during the production. Also, will you be mentioning the music that plays during the end credits? It used to scare the crap out of me as a child. On the subject of the ending credits, I never understood what the approaching planet was supposed to represent. Do you know? Bye for now. Okay. Oh, and then he messaged to say, just a reminder to mention that Jeremy Wilkin, who we talked about as being Virgil, and he is on board Skydiver, also played Dev Tarrant in Blake 7. I don't think we're going to add a Blake 7 watch to our regular episodes, but thanks for reminding us of that one, Chris. Oh, unless you want to add a Blake 7 watch, Michael, feel free to.
To be fair, it would just wind up some more people.
It would wind up some more people, yes.
I must admit, I do absolutely... Well, anyone who's been listening to the Tin Dog knows how much Blake 7... Every summer, I take a Divergent off and I rewatch some old Blake 7 episodes, and I've been reviewing all of the Big Finish Blake 7s as well. Yeah. Absolutely adoring those. So yes, but mind you though, hasn't everyone played a character called Tarrant at some point, somewhere?
If they're written by Terry Nation, yes.
Blake 7, yeah. Yes, all on Terry Nation.
So let's just address...
So there's a few points there.
I've got the Blu-ray now because I got it in the sale. I bought it on the last day of the sale, it turns out. You have a copy coming your way at Christmas, so we will be...
I certainly do. It's sat here. How unfortunately it's in Santa's sack, so I won't be able to experience it until the Christmas holidays.
Well,
where, of course, I'll be spending Christmas with my family, unable to watch UFO.
Yes. When I have it on the desk in front of me, the first episode I watched is Survival, for which we recorded an episode this morning, but you'll be hearing this before episode 4, which we recorded a few weeks ago. The crazy recording schedule of this podcast, and I can say, having done a comparison, that the picture quality is brilliant. It's definitely a step up from the DVD. And episodes now last a couple of minutes longer because, as with the Prisoner Blu-ray from Network DVD, they've remastered it in 24p, so it runs at the speed of a film in the cinema rather than a film recording for television. Yeah. And so they've clearly done something to the audio to slow it down to fit the new speed. But it means that over the course of a 50-minute episode, your episode now lasts maybe 1 or 2 minutes longer than it previously did. I have no idea why they've done that.
Even slower.
I have no idea why they've done that. I don't know whether you can't. No, you can do 25p. Of course, you can do 25p. So anyway,
yes,
you will no doubt discover that. Anything to say on Blu-ray? I suppose you haven't seen it yet, have you, Michael? So nothing to say on Blu-ray yet.
I haven't seen it. I'm desperately looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to the documentary, the Jamie Anderson documentary that's on there. On the box set, and I am really looking forward to watching that because, as I explained far too much, I don't know half as much about UFOs as I'd like to, and I'm hoping that'll help.
Maybe because I don't know if I'm going to have time before Christmas, maybe we should both watch that in the new year and we can talk about that on a future feedback episode. We can do a bit more of in-depth in depth on what we have on the Blu-ray.
Right. Well, in that case, I shall not watch it, and I shall hang on, and we'll do that. Also, if ever we're going to do a commentary episode, which I don't know if ever we will, we'd have to agree on which version we're going to watch. Is it going to be a Blu-ray or a DVD or whatever?
Yes, and then we would have to release 2 versions, one of which was either speeded up or slowed down, so that people with the other version... No, that's too complicated, isn't it? We'd just have to say, hey, we're watching the Blu-ray, or hey, we're watching the DVD, and go from there.
Exactly.
That's if we do commentaries. I'm not sure whether we will. So
I don't think we will.
We probably won't. So cast changes, yes. I think we've talked about this before, in that the main change is that George Sewell leaves and Wanda Bentham comes back.
Wanda Bentham turns up, yeah.
But there are other characters who appear early on and then disappear, and vice versa.
I think it was. There was a second shooting block, and George Sewell got work because there wasn't a locked-in schedule. I think it was just something as simple as that. Yeah, and I think there is a couple of other people do the same, but that's basically.
So I think we'll cover those as and when they disappear. So we'll keep a track of who's gone. I don't think we've got many episodes with Mike Bradley left. Mark Bradley left. And Lieutenant Ellis will disappear at some point as well, as will Peter Gordino's character as well. Doesn't last very long.
Right. Well, as I'm watching these as we go, fair enough. Let me see. Right. The end music. It is terrifying.
Yes.
It does put you on edge, and it is the sort of thing that someone would talk over now. When if it was being broadcast, it'd be like, and later on BBC 1 or whatever, or if you've got my accent, and now on Channel 4 something else, and it would just be like that. Yeah, very annoying. But it would normally be talked over or shrunk into a corner. But here you've got it in all of its glory, and yes, it's terrifying. I agree wholeheartedly.
And I believe it's a piece of incidental music from Doppelganger, or Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, which we've talked about before, which was the film that was made prior to UFO, from which a lot of the props and cars and things were taken. And it's very much not like your traditional Jerry Anderson show, which ends with a jolly kind of upbeat theme. And so the planet thing, now, because I was like, oh, isn't it the moon? And then I watched it again, having seen this comment, and went, oh, no, it's not, because... Can you picture it now, Michael? Or
I've got it here in front of me. It looks like you're basically pulling out, and then there's another world appears, and it's implied that it would be the alien world, but that would just mess with the physical reality of geography. It's not. Well, no, I think that's what it's supposed to be, but I think it's very much representative. Because you've got the sun, you've got the earth, you've got the moon. And I'm not quite sure whether the scales of those things work anyway. And then you pull out to something that looks a bit like a moon itself, but it's clearly not the moon. And I guess that is supposed to represent the aliens' home planet. But we as we discover later in the show, it's a very, very long way away, and you don't see any more of the solar system. So I think it's just it's a pictorial. I don't know if that's the word. It's a visual representation of the show, even if it's not astronomically accurate. Yeah,
is that fair?
That makes complete sense. Yeah, that's it. So, I don't know. Yeah, let's just go with that. There's nothing else you can do or say, and I don't think there's any way of really finding out. So, yeah, fair enough.
Yes.
What was any more points?
Not from him.
Yes.
On episode 1, I'm now looking on YouTube comments. So we have somebody called Regina, who thanks us for doing this, and very good comments about the plot hole, she says. And she says, I believe that one of the production crew's daughters came up with the name Shadow. So we'd have to corroborate that, but if that's true, that's an interesting thing.
In one of the Box Tree books, it does say that it was called, it was like UFO'd was the original thing, and then in the first test documents, and then it became Shadow. But I've not come across that particular story yet, but I am still looking.
Oh, yeah, no, actually, I remember reading that as well. Yes, it was UFO Defense Organisation or something, wasn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
UFOdo, and then changed it to Shadow. Okay. And she, like a few others, have said that they're not big fans of the Doctor Who stuff and the prisoner stuff. And we just need to reiterate at this point that Anderson Watch, Prisoner Watch, Doctor Who Watch, the reason that they're at the very end of the episode is so that you can turn off if that's not your bag. Obviously, we do occasionally refer to Doctor Who stuff during an episode just because we see a parallel there, but that's who we are, isn't it, Michael?
Let's put it this way. If you were football pundits and you were talking about one match, you might refer back to something that you'd seen in another match, and that's perfectly acceptable. Basically, that's it. We've spent years being Doctor Who fans. That is where we're coming from, but that's in order to provide us with a slightly different take on UFO. I'm sure there'll be more UFO podcasts in the future, but because that's where we've been, that's kind of what we've got. That's they're the tools I've got at my disposal to play with. So that's kind of what we're going with, and it lets us have a different point of view. So if you don't like it, just don't listen to that bit.
Yep. And she suggests that we check out some of the fan sites that are out there. And I have to say, since we started this, I've discovered a number of Facebook groups that I've joined. And there are, I think, because we've talked about the chronology of it, I think there's even a site out there which tries to find all the different time references. So 1981, 1984, we've already had 1980 in the opening titles. I think there is a site out there that tries to put it in some
UFO dating.
Chronological order, yes.
Yeah.
So we will try and do our research better if we've got the time. But we do have quite busy lives aside from doing this. And so again, if we get stuff wrong, please email us in, please comment, just let us know where we've cocked up, because we aren't Anderson experts. We are just fans of the show who are loving watching this along, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, more rather than this being some sort of in-depth review of the program, which, you know what, between us, I'm pretty sure we could do. But we're not. This isn't a lecture. This isn't a complete breakdown. It's not a book or anything, guys. It's basically just the equivalent of two people in a pub having a chat, fairly in-depth one, about a program.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is. We'll get stuff wrong. We'll say this. We'll repeat ourselves, but as it's a friendly thing. That's kind of what we were going for, and I hope that that's obvious.
Yep. The other piece of feedback I want to talk about on this first episode, and you'll have to cast your mind back to this, Michael. But this is on UFOcast.co.uk. So we're getting feedback from all over the place here. We've had Twitter, we've had YouTube, we've now got the actual website where the podcast is hosted. This is from a guy called Andrew Saxon, who says the Shadow Doctors are able to identify organs in the aliens stolen from Peter Carlin's sister. That does not mean that the other transplanted organs belong to victims from different planets. It just means they can't match them to anyone. It's not impossible that the aliens are raiding other worlds, but it's never stated on the show. The aliens were probably lucky just to find one planet perfect for their needs, and then there's the cat with 10 lives. The minion you speak of is Keith Ford, played by Keith Alexander, and he appears in several episodes. A little more research needed, but your enthusiasm made the podcast an enjoyable listen. So thank you very much, Andrew. Yes, thank you very much. And I think we have just addressed the whole thing of if we do need to do more research sometimes. Thank you for reminding us. Not
only do we need to do more research, but we are actually doing more research.
We are doing more research,
but it'll happen over time.
Yes, and I have actually responded to Andrew on the website, so he should have seen my response to this. But I wanted to talk about it because I think he's incorrect, and so I think we want to throw this up. Because his comment made me think, have I misunderstood the episode? Because you remember I went off on one about thinking that the aliens were not just coming to Earth. So I rewatched that scene again, and I think my interpretation is still correct, because Straker says the report indicates 5 major organ and gland transplants. In the case of the heart, tissue compatibility tests show it was human in origin. Right? Now, Michael, does that suggest to you that the other 4 organs and glands aren't human?
Yes, but not necessarily alien.
Okay.
It could be from other animals.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, there's a whole...
Yes.
It's like that quiz you get given. If you were an animal, what sort of animal would you be? We are animals. Yeah.
No, that is a very interesting point. Yes, it could be that the aliens have found a way to transplant cow organs into themselves or pig organs,
which would
or
explain cattle mutilation. If you wanted to go down that road, but that's a very 80s phenomenon. So
that's other kind of UFO lore being brought in there, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, which didn't exist at this point. Yeah.
So the thing I pointed out is it's only in the next scene that we then get additional tests that confirm who the heart belongs to, and that we know that it's Carl's.
That was where we were discussing when somebody said the computer says this, and it's got it.
So I think that my interpretation of the scene is still an option.
Valid. Yes.
But you have interpreted it in it. You have come up with another option, which says that that's the case. And Andrew is right in saying that there is no confirmation in the series that the aliens are going to other planets. It's possible, but he's right in saying that the series is very much focused on what's going on here.
But then again, there's a third. There's a third factor which references an episode I've not seen yet, so we'll deal with it. We'll probably come back to it. And
the Cat with 10 Lives. Yes, I think because you're watching quite far ahead. That's an episode that you will come to very soon. And
yes.
And Andrew is very right. The Cat with 10 Lives puts a completely different spin on the whole thing. So we'll see what you think of that when we get to it.
Yes.
But thank you very much, Andrew, for feedbacking. Feedbacking, is that a verb?
You know what
Sending
it is
in
now.
Feedback.
Language is what we decide to do with it.
Yes.
It doesn't.
And I
we
think
own it.
just on the point of Keith Ford, we did get to him in our Anderson watch bit. It's just that in the initial part of the episode, Michael, you didn't know who he was, and so you did just think he was a minion.
I did, yes.
But we do now know who he is.
Right. So, if there's any more comments, really.
There's just one more that I want to address, because I think there are other comments, but I think we've addressed most of what's come up. And this is a comment from Scatter Kia, whose real name I think is Kia Hardy, who says, "This is great. First I discover that Stephen Shapansky and Erica Ensign are doing a Prisoner podcast, and now I discover that you two are doing this. I'm 46, and I never saw UFO until this year. Have been watching them from Forces TV, I think. I've seen most of them now. It's great stuff. I think it has plenty to offer people who aren't particularly interested in Anderson shows, but their special skills and techniques are really well used in conjunction with the live action. I've listened to this one episode so far, and I look forward to the others. All the actor spotting is right up my street. I do that pretty compulsively myself. For instance, I watched the 1964 film First Men in the Moon last night and was delighted to spot the Professor's wife from the Prisoner episode The General. It's amazing how often actors from The Prisoner turn up in things, given that there wasn't that many of them and it didn't have a huge cast. Having seen George Sewell for most of my life cast in his standard roles of villains and rough coppers, it's very strange to see him in a more neutral role." So, that's cool. Thank you for your.
No, that's really
support.
nice. I hadn't seen that feedback at all. That's genuinely genuine nice thing to be said.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for everyone.
Have we talked about? I can't remember whether we've talked about doing a Prisoner podcast on this podcast. Have we? Have we talked about that, Michael?
You know what? We might have skimmed over it at the beginning, but we didn't.
We might have.
No.
But yes, Stephen and Erica have stolen our thunder and are doing a Prisoner podcast right now. Do check it out. It's called In the Village, and it's over on the Incomparable podcasty network. I will try and find a link to that and pop it in the show notes so you can have a look.
No,
at that.
It's deeply enjoyable. It really is.
It's great fun. As we're recording this, I think they're on episode 7. This is going to go out next week, so I think they'll be on episode 8. So they're about halfway through. The episodes, they're a lot less waffly than us. They only take maybe half an hour to dissect an episode of The Prisoner.
To be fair, I think most people are a lot less waffly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
they are considerably more focused as well. We did discuss originally the possibility, this is 2-3 years ago, of doing a Prisoner podcast where we'd chat about stuff and have a separate, having an additional number 2 who'd turn up and help out every week or so, or whenever the episodes were. But it was very spurious, and we really didn't get our backsides into gear at all about ever doing any of this.
No.
It was just a very nice thought. And I completely forgot that it was the 50th anniversary as well. Similarly to the people who own the rights to the DVDs, I don't think they realised it was the 50th anniversary either, which is why the box sets didn't kind of arrive on time.
Yes. Yeah, because they've just re-released The Prisoner on Blu-ray again, because it's already out on Blu-ray, which I have.
Yeah.
And there's a new film called In the Mind, I think, or In My Mind, which has come out about it, which I would love to see. I need to get hold of a copy of that.
Yeah.
In a sort of reverse Prisoner watch, I'm going to call it UFO watch. So the episode that Scatakia refers is the General, which I watched last week because that's the episode that they've just reviewed. And who should turn up but Al Mancini, or Mancini, who I was kind of watching it going, oh, who did... And it's very weird to see an American in The Prisoner, but I was like, where have I seen him before? And I looked him up, and sure enough, he's in 2 episodes of UFO.
So it's all just one big happy 1960s ITC family.
Yeah, so when we get to those episodes of UFO, of course, he will pop up in Prisoner Watch. But if we ever did a Prisoner podcast, we'd have to have a UFO Watch in return to talk about all the actors in The Prisoner who turn up in UFO. But he plays an astronaut in a couple of episodes, one in particular called Mindbender. He plays quite a big part. And in that episode of The Prisoner, he plays the guy who's running the TV station in the village. So...
Well, you never know. By the time we've finished the UFO, their Prisoner podcast will be gone, so we could always give it a go then. You never know.
Oh, yeah, I mean, their Prison podcast will be long finished by the time we finish this one, so we may get onto that. We may get onto something else.
I am worried that someone out there is going to suggest that we do the Space 1999 podcast. I quake at the thought.
Well, I've never seen Space 1999 beyond the odd clip here and there, so it doesn't have the same pull for me. But if somebody can persuade me it's worth watching and worth doing a podcast about, then maybe we will.
But I think I would rather have somebody.
We've got another year of this, so yes, this is going to come round to next September, I think, is when we're going to finish. So. There's still plenty of UFO to talk about first before we think about getting onto anything else.
So remember, you can always contact us via a variety of different ways. There's the Twitter account. There is, of course, emailing us directly. And, of course, there's Facebook as well.
Yes. And there's also the website, UFOcast.co.uk. People have found it and have commented, so thanks for that. Oh, before we go, I want to talk about demographics.
Okay.
Just in terms of who is watching, because this is fascinating to me, and it's something I've discovered recently. So, unsurprisingly, our top listeners are in the UK. We've got more visits and more listeners in the UK than anywhere else. That's what you'd expect because we are British. And the second on the list, I'm sure you can guess where that is, Michael.
Well, that'd be America.
That would be America, yes.
Yes.
But here is the interesting thing. We've talked about Japan before.
Yes.
We've talked about the fact that Japan is has a big Jerry Anderson fandom. So that's not surprising to see that coming in at number 4. But number 3 was a total surprise for me. And I've since discovered that this country has a big UFO following, and that is Italy.
Can I guess? Italy, yes. I was going to say that was going to be my guess.
Oh, sorry, yes. There are actually interviews with the cast on the Blu-ray disc that have come from ISO Shadow, which is the Italian section of Shadow, which is an Italian fan club for UFO.
But that's brilliant.
So I had no idea, and there are some Italian trailers on the Blu-ray which I have watched, which are absolutely amazing. The video quality is absolutely awful, but it's really interesting to see how it was marketed in another country. And there's a totally different piece of music on it, which I recognise, but I don't know why I recognise it. So if anybody can tell me...
When I get round to watching the Blu-ray myself, I shall have a look.
You'll have a look. So it's lovely. And then we've got Germany, Canada, Guernsey. There's a whole host of countries that we've had visits to the website from. So it's lovely to know that we have a global reach here.
But remember, you might be listening to this and you might know someone online who doesn't know about it. So feel free to spread the word.
Yes, I'm looking at the map right now and there are swathes of blank on it. So there's still lots of countries that we haven't made it to. So please keep passing the word out. Let people know that you're enjoying the podcast. Share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it around. We would love to get our voices into more people's ears as we go. You have been listening to the UFOcast with me, Luke, from Tmudwup.
And me, Michael, from the Tin Dog Podcast.
Please get in touch with the show, let us know what you think and any feedback you might have at ufocast@yahoo.com.
Or on Twitter at UFO_cast, available on Stitcher and iTunes.